Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to Goosebumps HorrorTown playthrough. This is going to be an interesting part just because I am going to be doing something new. I am reading from a script. Oh, hallelujah, some of you might be saying, just because of the fact that when it comes to these kind of reviews, they tend to lag on and with the but basically kind of deal. So we're just going to straight run through it. We're going to see how well this turns out, and if this is a positive thing, then these kinds of videos will have these moving forward. So now we are going to be talking about the recent event that has just passed, which is number 17, The Phantom of the Auditorium. So let's just go into a deep dive into this review by starting off with its story. Mayor Johnson is in a pit of despair, which a particular dummy overhears this and decides to get his plan of revenge going. This results in having her son Zeke come into HorrorTown in order to cause some much-needed chaos. Meanwhile, the town is hosting a play that was said to be lost a century ago, has just reappeared. This got Zeke to be involved with the play and thus getting the lead role as the Phantom. Then, however, he just disappeared, and the masked figure starts scaring the towns away from the stage. Is this the day the mayor finally snaps? So here are some facts about this event. This is considered our first theater/drama event we have gotten, and also be close to a year since we even gotten the talent show update with Mr.Wood, so I guess you can consider that a part of it. I don't know, it was in July, this is in June. Close enough. The story is based off the book of the same name, which is The Phantom of the Auditorium, as well as a little bit of the Scream of the Evil Genie, but I don't count that because she was hardly in there. I'll talk more about that later on. This was our first time we saw a game use a normal original character and turn them into a monster in a new scene, that being Mayor Johnson. And the event started June 10th and ended July 8th at 8 p.m. Eastern EDT. Or I would say Eastern Standard Time, but EDT I guess is the normal when it comes to daylight savings. Now, I stated here it was the 9th, but as we know, by my track record as of late, I always seem to be off a day, so apologies there, but whatever, it's close enough. So is this century-old play worth an encore, or was it truly cursed and hidden away for a reason? Let's find out by looking into what made this event good. The graphic this time around is straightforward to understand at first glance. We know there's 3 common items, and each one goes further down for the next item and so on. I'm also glad that the non-event items needed are not as hard to get besides the theater masks if you don't have Zeke or Mr.Wood during this event. Overall, this wasn't a bad implementation compared to the last one we've dealt with. The new items fits well with the overall theater theme. Despite the meme I've done when it came to the vampire event, it is nice that we have some of the unique or older, harder items from that event coming back for people to grab if they missed it. The grand prize was also a nice little nod to the book, as well as the statue that is being offered within the book's chapter section. You need Zeke, unfortunately, but you know, it was decent enough. Also, seeing Sam as in the amphitheater being available for the event currency, it is interesting if this is something they are testing for future updates, allowing newer players to gain access to higher level items sooner, but we'll wait and see. I kind of vaguely think that this might be related to like how they've done back in the 2019's Valentine's Day event when they introduced Courtney as well as her boyfriend. I guess it's her boyfriend, but Will, with the Werewolf of Fever Swamp update. That was for a higher level, but people were able to access it early if they weren't there. So perhaps this might be in the similar vein here, but we'll have to wait and see until the next update. The story setting actually fits well with not only the original book, but also stands out as its own main story. However, we seem to enjoy reading through and acting out these little dramas that's been going on within our little town. It seems as they are going with an overall big narrative alongside the feature book being told. Also, just to add that unlike the last update, at least it was clear to read through, and not grammatical errors or random nonsense like, well, look at my previous last update in May. You'll get what I'm talking about or referring to. The new character introduced, Zeke, was charming to have introduced to our game. Now I would discuss with the pricing with him later on in this video. I will say, unlike Walter, he is at least feels a bit more useful and fleshed out in my opinion. I do like how they keep a bit of the Zeke in the story while also giving him more character of having him being the son of our dear, well, former mayor now it seems. And finally, the secret scene and Gina's animation reveal introducing for the game was a real treat to see. I can see why they were trying to keep these as much of a secret, especially the reveal of the Mayortron monster being the biggest monster we have gotten so far is real insane. Gina herself, I do like the design they gave her, although I would like to see her as the punk rocker look that she was described in the book. My guess is the reason that because Andy's kind of fitting that role, that they may have just made her more of a genie-like. But perhaps that might be for another time. Hopefully. So now it's time to look at the criticisms that this event brought with it. So let's go looking deep into the bad side. Well, like before, I have not been affected by this. However, I might as well bring this up. There seems to be a bug that's causing items not to be registered as collected on some devices. I know stuff like this is hard to fix and even not 100% sure what might have caused this, but I can see why it's being annoying, especially when items are supposed to be 100% and yet they don't get it. I'm not 100% sure if it has something to do with the software-wise or if it's just their phone. I do know that when it comes to these kind of games with different mobile devices, it is really hard to do. So my best guess is that if you are listening to this and you having problems like this, try to contact the support team, and hopefully if they get enough tickets, they might be able to discover what the problem is. You know, as cool of a prize Emil's hideout is, you know what would have been even better to see? Emil. I feel like this was a missed opportunity for Emil to be included in this game, since I can see potential in a character like this. Who knows, we might have seen him down the road, since other characters not from books make their appearances in the stories, so maybe we might see him in the future, possibly, but, yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, I can see Emil being maybe like a janitor or like a homeless bum. I don't know, like, there's many potentials with him, but speaking of future updates, let's be honest, this is only for new and or freemium players out there. The grind for this getting items sucks! Now I know this is a free-to-play mobile game, so the transactions are most likely something to expect, and to be fair to Pixowl, they aren't the worst with how it could go about monetizing their game. However, that being said, I have seen a lot of complaints from players even flat out quitting due to feeling like they have to pay to get anything done. Again, I want to address they are making characters for you to invest in worth in the long haul compared to other games where you would just get them and then that's it. They're gone. They're not good for anything other than that. At least they're trying to make it so that if you buy into an event character, they may come advanced later on in you know, kind of like with Santa Claus. He's good for Christmas. So if you invested in him, then for Christmas stuff, you're clear to go. But with that being said, I do have to bring this up because I feel like if I didn't, it would be an injustice to the team might be watching this. Let's not forget Gina in this update. I feel like there's a bit of a shame she was put in for now as just only a spawn monster instead of a walk around. Especially since the book she came from could have had some interesting materials to work with overall. Despite her not having such a huge role with an update that didn't have her originally and that makes sense to not heavily focus on her. But this makes her just being a side note overall. I do really hope to see her story being more fleshed out and unfold in the future, and she just doesn't get forgotten and just left aside like some other characters have in the past. Yeah, would you look at that? The biggest complaint for this update is the high-priced characters and scenes. Now look, I'm glad they finally gave us items that we could, in theory, get out, forcing us to fork over real-life money on. And yes, they did give Zeke some tasks that could be argued to be worth the price for this update. But most people just gave up when they saw one required item cost 10,000 of the event currency, and the task only drops like only in the 2-digit marks when it comes to the currency itself. I do think because of how the end of the quest was structured that they may have wanted you to try to sell and grind items to Seder to get the items overall. I guess as a justification to keep you busy. And yes, I did say the Mayortron scene is really cool to have. But have you seen with all the stuff I brought up before, it's really hard not to feel a bit ripped off. Not to be able to complete anything unless you invest in. I really hope they find a way that they can make a profit without having players wanting to leave the game that well. Let's not think about that right now. So here's what the review card looks like at the end of the day. So now I'll bet you more than less wondering with all the pros and cons out of the way. Grim, what did you think of this event? Well, I'm going to tell you, but just to know, I will also be telling you where out of the 17 events so far this has been placed into. So with that being said, what do I think it's better at? Well, that's beating the April Fool's update back in April, Monster Blood. Now, unlike Monster Blood, this event is a bit more stable. No characters that's locked behind a paywall, not talking about the hard currency. The story is a bit faithful with the theme and adds more allure when it comes to the story of the town so far. Items are available as fitting more to the theme than the Monster Blood was, and the new scenes are really more fun to see out and about versus, oh, they're just giant forms. I know they're being faithful to the Monster Blood, but come on, like, wouldn't you want them to be a little bit more cooler? I don't know, just my overall take. So, what did it not do so hot in? Well, I would go with the cringiest yet fun Valentine's event at the Poison Lake event. So why did it suck? Mainly due to the Zeke's price being too high, although you could argue justified. I don't see him as a 70 hard currency character, especially when the event ends. The big 10k and the whole currency thing was just really just gone out there. The price of items were so high and the quests don't drop a lot to make it feel more like a grind to sell items out to get everything on time versus the Valentine's Day one. Although cringy and whatnot, it did introduce Emily, which is cheaper than Zeke, and she stayed around longer than anything else. Who knows if Zeke is going to also stay around because of what I stated back in part 1, but it is something to behold. Overall, I think a user on Reddit by the name of Clayton of Clans hit the nail on the head when they said this quote: "The fandom of the Auditorium is just please don't feed the vampire, is if less intense and less traumatizing." I cannot tell you why I had these vampire vibes, and no, it's not because of the items that were included, the 3 of them, or the fact that it was a theater theme, movie theme, whatever you like to call it. I think mostly it has something to do with the grind and the items that are coming out of it. Now, it is not the worst of it, as we've seen. A lot of people go into this thinking, oh, this is impossible, and then near the end they actually got, oh, look, I beat it finally, hooray, I feel accomplished. However, I feel like this update wasn't overall terrible. I feel like some areas could have been expanded more and even slightly better balanced for newer users. If that was the case, then it would have probably been better. With that being said, this is placing 5th out of the 17th events we had so far. So, what do you think of my review? Do you agree with it? Do you disagree? Let me know down below and tell me what you overall think. By the time this review comes out, the overall new update has just been announced by accident by Pixowl's website, and the update hasn't hit yet. But we already know what's coming up, and that will be very interesting to talk about because, oh boy, well, you'll have to wait and see yourself. But for now, that will be it for the fandom of the Auditorium. The curtains have now called, the things have closed. So with that further ado, I'll be going out to dig my bow. Thank you for watching this playthrough. Hopefully I see you more for this next Goosebumps HorrorTown playthrough gives us. Until then, I have been Grim. Have a good night.